Hello and welcome, Dr. Cousens, Dr. Garbriel Cousens. It is such an absolute joy, and I'm so excited to have you on this interview. It's been a long time goal and dream to connect with you, so welcome and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a delight to talk to you.
So you're very welcome, and I'd just like to let our listeners know a little bit about your background, although I know a lot of people are already very familiar with your work because you've been doing it a very long time and incredibly successfully. But just as a little introduction, Dr. Cousens has been doing humanitarian work since 1965 and has continued to do humanitarian and peace work throughout the world since then, including teaching and service in 42 countries. Although Dr. Cousens doesn't make any claims, he's been directly acknowledged as liberated by two liberated gurus, Swami Muktananda and Swami Prakshananda, who in turn were acknowledged as liberated by their gurus. In 1981, Dr. Garbriel Cousens was empowered and directed by Swami Muktananda to give Shaktipat, which is energy to awaken the Kundalini. And since 2008, Garbriel Cousens has also functioned as an ordained rabbi, co-founder of the first Kundalini crisis clinic in the world. Dr. Cousens is considered a world-recognized expert on Kundalini. In addition, Dr. Cousens is a 4-year Native American sun dancer, an eagle dancer, and 11-year spirit dancer, ghost dancer, adopted by the Lakota Sioux Horn Chip clan. Dr. Cousens was appointed head of Yellow Horse clan. Dr. Garbriel Cousens' unique contribution to the spiritual world today is the creation of the idea and teachings of spiritual nutrition and the formulation of the path of holistic liberation, which emphasizes a natural way of living guided by the 6 foundations and 7-fold peace that can take you to liberation. Dr. Cousens is also a holistic orthomolecular physician, homeopath, psychiatrist, family therapist, Ayurvedic practitioner, and has served as a lieutenant commander in the US Public Health Service. He's a former member of the Board of Trustees of the American Board of Holistic Integrative Medicine, and currently Vice President of the Arizona Board of Holistic Integrative Medicine. Additionally, he's a world leader in healing diabetes naturally, functioning as both a researcher and healer. Dr. Cousens is also a world leader as a physician, teaching the importance of 100% organic, veganic, at least 80% live food diet for healing and empowering ourselves and the world, as well as the best way to feed the world. He's the founder and director of the Tree of Life Foundation, the best-selling author of 13 books, and is also co-founder of a West African NGO called the West African Rural Health Empowerment Society, and also Alianza de Corazon in Mexico, a group of humanitarian organizations. He presently has established and supported over 100 health and diabetes prevention programs, organic, veganic farming projects, and orphanages in 26 countries. In Cameroon, he supported the creation of over 55 organic, veganic farms. He received the Cesar Chavez Award in 2013 for his nutritional and diabetes education of migrant farm workers in the US. He's happily married to Shanti Gold's Cousens, father to Raphael, Heather, and grandfather to Ria, Katia, and Anais. He lives full-time in Israel. And if you want any more information about Dr. Cousens' work and his programs, you can sign up for his newsletter by visiting www.drcousens.com or treeoflife.mn.co. And you can also email him directly with info@treeoflife.nu. So over to you, Dr. Cousens.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad to be sharing with everyone. What I like to do is start out with a little bit of spiritual dancing. There's a story to that. in 1802, very difficult time in Russia, and a very, very famous Rabbi Nachman, they came to him, what to do? He said, we got to start dancing. We have to start dancing to remember who we are. So in these difficult times in the outer world, when you dance and bring the spiritual joy back into it, then we begin to remember who we are. So that's how I get started with it. That's why it's important. We'll dance for like 3 minutes and invite everybody to dance. Now, after we dance, then I'd like to lead us in a little bit of meditation. And let me explain it. In 1995, at the end of a 21-day water fast, I got a message of what the meditation should be. And you can see it. It's Yod on the in-breath, Hey on the out-breath. Wa on the in-breath, Hey on the out-breath. Yod from the base, or really below the base chakra, to the heart, and Hey out through the heart. Then Wa, not Vav, Wa from the base to the third eye, and then Hey out to the heart, merging the heart and the mind. So that's key, is connecting the heart and the mind. So I'm going to give a little prayer now. It's about merging the heart and mind in heavens and the earth. And it's Hashem Yiku Kudusha Brihu Ushinate Bi'ilo Ar'imu Laiha Shem Yuki Bavavke Bi'idashlam Hashem Kozreal Kolam Amen. Feel that integration of heart and mind. Okay, and now we're going to dance. Everybody gets to dance, and you're dancing filled with spiritual joy. And we'll just go 3 minutes. Let me just get myself set. Now, we're going to start the meditation with a little bit of energy Shaktipat from my eyes. So I need to be sending this out that people can see me. Okay, here we go. And just focus. Catch my breath. Just focus on my eyes for a minute and let that divine energy coming through my soul touching yours. You. And now into meditation, just repeating that name of God. Okay. Yo. Slowly come out of meditation. And now, Karina and I will begin to talk.
That feels very different.
Yes, it does. And so we're ready.
Great. So how did you begin your path into all this spiritually expanded work?
I would say the hard way. So when I was 1, I had tuberculosis. And that was in 1943. So I'm in my 80th year, but 1943. And I didn't, in that time, they didn't have a treatment for it. So all I had is my mother's prayers and my father's prayers. And again, didn't expect to be survived, but we did. But I always had the question from that time, what is this mystery of death? What's going on here? So that was the first thing. Then when I was 4, my family wasn't really into healing in any way, but I knew I wanted to be a doctor. No reason for that, okay? And then as it progressed, when I was 16, my older brother died in a car accident, then my father died, and my mother died. So by the time I'm 33, I'm it. And I'm still with this question, what's this mystery of death? And in 1975, after a deep meditation, actually before I received Shaktipat, the awakening of the Kundalini, the energy came up and each chakra lit up. That's how I learned about the chakras. I saw each individual petal. Each chakra has a different petal and a different teaching. And it went all the way to the top, crown chakra, and then beyond, kind of disappeared into nothing. And then as they came down and the chakras and their colors and the petals appeared, a little voice, which I believe was from God, rang out and said, there is no death for the self. The soul is immortal. Physical body may die, but the soul is immortal. So I got my answer. So, but I was pursuing that for literally 33 years. And it was only when the awakening of the Kundalini or spiritual energy happened that I got it. So that's how I got started. As I say, that wasn't the most fun way to do it. I mean, at the end it was fun, but certainly there was a certain had to pay a price.
Wow, that's quite an entry point.
Yeah, I think so. But
What was the experience of the chakras like? Were you feeling it in a very sensory way, or was it a visual experience?
Well, I have to be clear. I was somewhat aware of the chakras before. And I had been doing chakra balancing on people because I saw that when people's chakras are imbalanced, they would often get invaded by entities and things. And so once the entity is removed, then you have to rebalance the chakras because they have to be rotating in a certain way. There's a vortex, but there's a rotation. And so I wasn't unfamiliar. What's different? I actually saw the petals, I saw the colors, and I saw and experienced the energetic teachings of each chakra. That was it. It was more of a right brain understanding. So that was, and I'm thinking, why is this happening to me? Okay. Well, in my book, Spiritual Nutrition, I describe all this. And I describe the 72,000 nadis, the channels through which the spiritual energy, we call it Raha Kadesh or Kundalini, moves. And that was part of what I was to do, is give the anatomy. And also consequently, also how to eat in a way to make that anatomy optimize. So you become a superconductor of the divine.
I love that.
So that's how that unfolded. So I did see each chakra, each set of petals. And for example, in the heart chakra, I only saw 8 petals. So how can that be? You're supposed to be 12. I mean, what's going on? But later, in a kind of deeper understanding, I was seeing the primordial petals. There's like 2 sets for the heart chakra. So I just saw the deeper one first. So every piece I get, then I research up to figure out what's going on. So
wow.
that's
how you saw it. Were you eating in a vegan way before this experience, or was this experience led you to be a vegan?
The initial move towards being vegan happened in 1973 with my wife was pregnant with our daughter, and we both had this nightmare that the fetus was a chicken and we were eating it. Same night, and we became vegan. That's it.
Wow.
That's when we became vegan. One day conversion. But becoming vegan, it takes a little time to get it organized and understand it. So I was somewhat vegan at that time. The following that, I also got a message in the same meditation. You should learn to eat in a way that feeds the Kundalini. Okay, well, so I began doing research okay, that's my assignment, okay? And that's where I evolved the idea of a 100% vegan, at least 80% live food diet, because it best amplifies the flow of the spiritual energy, the Ruach HaKodesh, or Kundalini, through the chakras, but also through what we call the nadis. So what are the nadis? That there's 72,000, but there's 3 main ones. And those are the channels through which the spiritual energy flows. So they have Ida, Pangali, and Sushumna. If we're familiar with the Kabbalistic tree of life, there's also 3 columns. So we have the 3-column system. It's kind of in different systems, but it's the same thing. And so got clear is that meat, fish, chicken, and dairy block the flow. Now, how did I know that? I didn't know that theoretically. I was working with a lot of people who had trouble with Kundalini. And I noticed something very unusual. They would begin to eat meat to calm the Kundalini.
Yeah.
Why is that happening? Well, I realized it was meat, fish, chicken, and dairy act as a sludge to the flow of the Kundalini. Take it a little further, as I understood the vegan, it's that, wait, when you kill an animal, you create pain, fear, and misery, and you take their soul in and you eat it, you're taking all that into yourself. That blocks the flow of the spiritual energy, okay? So you're taking death in, you take an animal soul in, and you're not only blocking it, but you're degrading the flow. So the obvious conclusion is fine, go vegan and go live food because you get the most amplification.
And that affects your physical energy.
Oh yeah. So you heard me mention that I'm really in my 80th year. Okay.
Amazing. And you look so young as well.
Yeah. And I feel young because one of the things I am teaching is that with age, we can get stronger, more flexible, and clear and deeper in our thinking. It's a mindset, for example, the diabetes question came up. Well, it's incurable. Can't. Well, if you think that, you'll never get cured. But if you run across someone like me who says, well, fine, we cure 61% in 3 weeks, it's like, okay, we've now let go of that idea. So in a sense, why I'm sharing this is actually to help people let go of the myth that with age you get weaker, more feeble, and less flexible, less breath, and you start to contract. But truly, you can keep expanding with age. So we have a biblical example of Moses. He's 120 years old, but when he leaves his body, it says, his eye was not dimmed and his strength was the same. He just defeated the Og, the 13-foot giant, you know, and hand-to-hand combat. It's like, you're 120 years old, you just defeated that giant. Okay, I'll believe you. So there is a clear message.
Yeah.
It's just that we have to let go of the mythology that, oh, that's just what's going to happen. Okay, you're going to get weaker and older. So, but of course, you have to work harder to do that. It's possible. So, I don't want to talk into, but just as an example. So when I was 20 and captain of an undefeated American football team, I could do 70 push-ups. You know, what push-ups, right? At 60 years old, I did 601. That's a lot, okay? So now at 80, I'm doing 2,000.
Wow.
That's nonstop, right? 3 times a week. Now, what's my point? It's not to brag. It's to make a point by my own experience, not theory, that you can get more strong with age. You get more flexible too. And that's the point I'm making. But we have to let go of the mythology that we create, mindset.
That's amazing. So have you adjusted your spiritual nutrition along the way through the decades? Is that how it works? Do we need to be more mindful to adjust our eating as we get older?
Well, there are 2 things. The first thing is, and this is how I found out, I'm always pushing myself a little bit. That's important. We're never over. We're never done. There's always another step to take. That's in spiritual life, but also every aspect of life. Okay, there's always another step. It's an attitude, right? Okay. So I was stuck doing 25 pull-ups, okay? Couldn't get beyond that, which is a lot. I mean, when I was 20, I could do 7, okay? But I said, I must be doing something wrong. And I meditated, and I realized I'm not getting enough protein. Now, I don't eat a lot of protein. The range for healthy protein is 35 to 70 grams. If you're a low protein person, meaning a slow oxidizer, 35, 40. I was probably getting that or a little less. And I realized, wait, in the 60s, you actually need to have more protein. So I added 1 tablespoon of protein concentrate, like spirulina, blue-green algae. And that little bit of protein I added, which fits with that age, I jumped up to 100 pull-ups.
Wow.
So do you see what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm always adjusting. It's never the same. The water is always changing. But that was in the 60s. At least it says, the research says for men, you need a little bit more protein. I think it's for men and women, but the research said for men, so that's as far as I can say. So there's just little adjustments like that all the time. So you always have to kind of be thinking about it and keeping on top of it.
And how do we judge it? Based on how we feel? Is that how we know that our diet works for us? Or?
Well, the answer is yes. The simplest way is, do you have energy all day long? Do you feel clear, bright? There's no drop in energy. You feel strong and vibrant. And also sexual energy. Everything is strong. Okay, everything's steady. It's probably the right word. And I also judge it by, checking myself physically. Okay, you can do that many push-ups, you can do this. Well, then you're pretty on. That's how I judge it. So, because I'm testing myself. Otherwise, I feel good, okay, but that's not the same as, optimum.
If we're eating spiritually, what happens? Are we feeding the chakras? What happens to our immune system? Is there a best way to do that without having like a personalized profile?
Yeah, so first I just want to say one more thing. So I began eating less food. And I actually just have a few herbs and in the morning, and then I eat one meal a day. And I don't eat at night. Liquids. So
Wow.
I evolved to just one meal.
So lunchtime is your one meal, and then back to water
or juice,
or like a green. Are you particular about fruit? Are you happy to take fruit?
Not a whole lot. I'm not against, a little bit of berries and cherries and green apples or something, but I just mostly just have a salad. That's the main thing, a good big salad. Yeah. At 80 years old, you don't need a whole lot of food. At 60, you don't need a lot of food. The only way you're going to grow is this way, right? So the whole idea is to adjust to what you actually need. And so I trial and error, 3 meals, 2 meals, how's this working? Okay, well, let's just do the 1 meal and see what happens. And it's like, okay, now we're hitting optimum energy because I'm not using all my energy for digestion.
But can you still get the nutrients and the minerals and the vitamins from 1 meal?
I think so, particularly if it's live food. But the truth is I do take supplements. I have for years and years and years. And so I kind of like, fill that in. 100 years ago, people didn't need supplements. But our earth is worn out a little bit. The plants are worn out. The soils are not really filled with the nutrients. And so I will do some supplementation to do that. For example, whether you're a vegan or meat eater, everyone needs B12, human active B12. Okay, and you can't just get that by foods with B12 because those are often B12 analogs. So it has to be gotten from the B. In our own body, we have bacteria produces human active B12. And so we get it. So if you're going to get a B12 supplement, it has to come from those bacteria that are producing human active B12. And that's the key. B12 is not the key, it's human active B12. So everybody needs that, okay? There's a few things like that people just need to do it. It's a rare person who can get away with not doing that.
Things like cacao for iron. Would that be a good, what would you say that would act as a substitute for a supplement? We're talking about supplements.
Yeah, mostly my food is food. So I actually take cacao in the morning. Cacao is unique because it improves blood flow to the brain and to the heart. And the medical literature actually shows it improves your mental state and your heart strength.
Is that okay for kids as well?
There's not much research on it, but that's my impression. It's okay. Yeah. So I think it's a good idea because it does improve your IQ, and it's also good for diabetics. You get about 12% less diabetes if you're taking cacao.
It's fascinating.
But it's things like that, or herbs like ashwagandha or reishi that are good for your brain. Go to cola. I don't want to go through, but so I'm mostly taking herbs. So I've been doing herbology for since the 70s. Okay, so and there are certain herbs when you look at the people with longevity, people who they're usually the Chinese, and there's three to four main herbs they take that all the longevity people take. It's the ginseng, and it's goji berries. Most people don't realize that goji berries is the #1 longevity herb. Seriously,
How do you take it? How do you just put the berries in a smoothie, or do you diffuse it as a tea?
I honestly don't use smoothies so much because it's a medical, it's mechanical. I just take the goji berries. I have my tea in the morning, my special kind of green tea type thing, and I put them in so they kind of swell up. Then I put my cacao in it. That's my drink. Okay, so that's how you take it, just straight. Okay, the goji berries, and then you have the ginseng, and then you have the reishi, and those are I get from China. A special. There's a special mountain that goes on that you get the really highest quality reishi and so forth. So those are your 3 big longevity herbs, but they're good for everything.
How many goji berries would you say is? I got visions of people putting lots in. How many is a good amount?
I put 3 tablespoons.
Oh, a lot. Okay, so that's fine to do. And then you just drink it.
Works for me.
Yeah. Fantastic. And the herbs like the ashwagandha, you can take these ongoing, right? Am I correct in saying that?
These are called tonic herbs. Tonic herbs, you can take a little bit over a long period of time. So yes, you are correct. I'm just trying to educate, not you in general. Tonic herbs is what I'm talking about. And
with these, because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the nervous system and strengthening the nervous system. Anxiety is it's like the most common, it's a very, very common thing, especially after all the lockdowns and people feeling that bit more frazzled with their anxiety and their nerves. What would be the best way to strengthen that, to restore that calm?
So I really talk about a whole way of life. Okay. And I'm going to say this, I'll call it the 6 foundations and 7 full P's. So if I run through it, all of them make a difference. Okay. And what the global superstructure do is trying to fragment all of that. That's why people are having trouble, because it isn't just anxiety, it's also depression, it's also suicide. And as a psychiatrist, I'm aware that people are really depressed, okay? And worst is teenage girls. They're the most depressed and they're the most acting out around that, because they're just sensitive, okay, at that age. Okay, so what's the point? So first thing, we talk about diet, okay? And I include the supertonic herbs in that. So we're talking about a vegan, 80% live food diet, and it's according to your constitution. People are different. Not just men and women are different. We have a chromosome 19, and it says how much fat, how much protein, and how much carbohydrate you should have, literally. And it's true. And the point I'm making is you have to kind of organize your diet to that. Now that's a whole nother session we can do at another time, okay? Because there's a whole approach. Okay, so once you kind of figure out your pattern, okay, then you see how much protein, how much fat, how much carbohydrate, and then that's kind of what you're doing, okay? And then I do fasting. I think it's really important to fast at least a week, twice a year. So I've been doing that since 1983. Okay. And
what type of fast? What does it involve?
Diluted green juice fast. Now, I include that as part of it because we need a kind of a detox at least twice a year because the toxins build up, and particularly with what's in the air and all the things. So we lead fasting retreats. I mean, we have been doing it in Israel and also around the world, but now we're doing it over the internet until things get better. We're doing it over the internet. Okay, so that's another part of it. The second part is movement of some sort. Spiritual dance. I also do yoga 5 days a week. I do breathing exercises, pranayama. By the time you're 70, if you aren't doing breathing exercise, you lose 50% of your lung capacity. That's a lot, okay?
A lot.
And if you look at the masks and people who are older, they're already low in their lung capacity and their oxygen. So that really compromises people's thinking ability. And that's actually a big deal. So we want to do that. So the dance, the yoga, and then service and charity. You saw I do a lot of service because serving other people opens up your heart energy. Okay. And so I've been doing it in different ways, but that's a key concept. Service and or charity, but service is really the thing. Fourth, as much meditation as possible. I meditate about an hour twice a day. Okay. And it literally builds your brain, literally, not figuratively. The brain decreases in size 1% per year. And studies at Harvard have actually shown that it increases critical brain size, physical size, critical brain centers. So you actually increase the size of your brain. Your frontal lobes, your hippocampal areas, some of the temporal lobes, they actually increase in size. So you want to grow your brain.
Is that all styles? Basically anything that really, really calms the mind and slows the thoughts?
I'm going to say something like that. Yeah, it's not a moving meditation. It's a quiet meditation. What we did is what we call is more traditional, both Torah meditation, but also Shaktipat meditation. Because in Torah, you also have the descending of the spiritual energy. Okay, so that's what we were doing. So that's basically what I teach. And that's what I was given to teach. So meditating an hour twice a day is part of that. So, and also repeating the name of God. It keeps you focused on the truth. It's hard to forget what's up. And then the sixth is as much awakening and supporting the spiritual energy as possible. Okay, now the fourth, I kind of semi-skipped over it. It's really good to work with the spiritual teacher because they've already fallen through enough holes that they can guide you. Okay.
That's the benefit.
Yeah, they don't have to be liberated. I was fortunate to work with 2 liberated spiritual teachers, but they just have to know more than you and be sincere with what they're doing. Because it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so that's the 6th foundation. You live that lifestyle. Now, the 7-fold piece is similar, except for a few things. Sacred relationships. So why are sacred relationships important? Well, besides it elevates you spiritually, it's a whole spiritual path. The research shows that people who are in marriage or sacred relationship actually have 49% less mortality. I know that's shocking, but the bigger picture is social contact. So if you have social contact, that's 45% increase in or decrease in mortality rate. So social contact's the very important part where humans are social beings. So what do the lockdowns do? Which they don't work. It's obvious. We know that from, no one's ever done that before, but that's another issue. They keep people separate. They fragment the social context. that's extremely destructive to humans because we're social beings. Okay. Particularly Westerners, versus yogis in a cave. So we're looking at, this is really not good. And same with family. Family is important, those connections. So peace with the family is the sacred relationships in the different ways. Family gives, there's a lot of research on it. Some of it was done in England, but the point is, they did this 10-year study. Definitely kids in a happy family live longer, are happier, do better in school. It's just everything's better. Okay. Now, the second thing that's a little different with this, the seven, okay, 6 foundations, 7-fold peace, is working with humanity. Okay, so it's doing your work. I did mention it before, but also working in Native American, we say Om Atakiwasi. What does that mean? To all my relations. So what are they talking about? The humans, the animal world, the plant world, the living planet, the rock people, Native American language, okay? It's being in harmony with all that, okay? And then another aspect is what I call spiritual ecology. Not as an ecologist, but being one with the living planet. Ecologists are not always one with the living planet. There are theories, but I'm talking, being at one. Again, more Native American way, but we're one. Us and the planet are one. What's good for us is good for the planet. What's good for the planet is good for us. And then focus on God. So all those combined create a lifestyle that's actually pretty simple that can lead to liberation, which is what your question was. But it leads to good health as a byproduct, not as a goal.
Which really connects into, we touched on, you talked about peace with family relationships, which is a big theme for many people, and how that affects everything. It's not just about eating, it's a whole picture. What kind of role do you think forgiveness has in healing, in physical healing, emotional healing?
In all levels of healing, forgiveness is absolutely essential. Because if you don't forgive, then you're stuck in the past. It's an anchor to the past. You can't move forward. Forgiveness cuts the anchor and you're free to keep flowing on your journey.
As true forgiveness, as opposed to forced forgiveness.
No, talking true forgiveness.
Yeah, as in, because it's a big theme. People say they want to forgive, but it feels forced. How do they access true forgiveness?
I usually lead people more individually through a kind of a psycho-spiritual process to deal with forgiveness. And it turns out often that whatever they're forgiving had past life experiences, sometimes with that same person or other people, but there's a whole series of things that get cleared up. And your trouble forgiving over here, started back here. And so true forgiveness means I'm doing all the things connected to that, which, it keeps you from being easily able to forgive here, because you have to forgive back there, past lifetimes and things.
So it's very useful for people to have in their intention when they forgive to go in every direction with that.
Yes.
The things they don't know, the things they can't see.
Absolutely. Well, we try to go back in time and space to things so they can experience that and forgive. Because you have to really feel it. Otherwise, it doesn't quite do it.
Do you feel, that's incredibly helpful, actually, because most people are focusing on what's happening right now.
Right.
So that's fascinating.
Yes, and it happens in different ways. A lot of times babies in the womb take on their mother's whatever, haven't forgiven. It's like, what's the problem? Well, and then you go back and you see, wait. I took this on from a mother. It wasn't even mine, but in the womb I took it on. Or, it's not only mothers, it's you past lives, and you're carrying it for lifetimes. It's like, So now we have a chance to clear all the lifetimes around that issue.
Amazing. So I wanted to touch on diabetes because I know it's an area of huge expertise and experience, and you've witnessed some incredible things with diabetes, which, from what I understand, what you're teaching is it is incredible, but it's also logical. It's not the miracle you think it is. It's just doing things in a certain way will equals that result.
That's right. That's right.
So could we talk about whether that applies to both type 1 and type 2?
Okay, so I just want to, you answered something about the chakras, how to feed the chakras with food. So the rainbow diet is that the chakras have different predominant colors. So the base chakra is red. So when the cover of the food is a clue to the nutrients inside that actually support the chakra on the physiological level. So, red is going to do base and so forth. So that's, just wanted to answer that. Okay. Okay.
That's very helpful, actually. People can say, okay, they've got an issue in that part of the body. What color do I need to bring in?
Right. Okay. So now we're talking. Maybe reframe the question now. Now I just had to answer that, but
sure.
Go ahead.
So just really to understand a little bit more about how, first of all, is it possible to reverse and heal type 1 diabetes?
Okay. So it was really both. So the principle is the same, but they're two different, in a sense, dysfunctions. So let's start with type 2 for a second. So diabetes type 2 is a chronic degenerative inflammatory disorder that affects all the organ systems. It affects your mind. You get 2.4 times more Alzheimer's disease. It affects your heart. A lot of people die, most people die of diabetes from heart attacks, because it affects your circulatory system. It affects your kidneys. 20 to 50% of people with diabetes have kidney failure. Okay, it affects your circulation. You have amputations. So there's lots and lots of things associated that go on from this chronic. This is the way I'm trying to explain. It's not about blood sugar. It's a chronic degenerative inflammatory disease that's set off in a sense. I would call epigenetic, and then you have genetic. And people can have genetic tendencies to diabetes, but living a certain lifestyle, lots of sugar, a lot of junk food, a lot of meat. Meat eaters have 35 to 50% more diabetes. Meat, fat, fish fat, all destroy the beta cells of the pancreas. So you're creating a certain destruction that, okay, so you've eaten your way to diabetes. That's really type 2. Okay. Type 1 is a little bit more of an autoimmune problem. So in type 1, which can begin with allergy to cow's milk, very common, and childhood vaccinations. Those are the two main causes. I mean, you see it with the COVID vaccine too. People are having diabetes, and so it's the same principle. What happens is the body gets the immunization and it responds to the antigen as if it's attacking the diabetes. It makes antibodies, but they go against the pancreas and not that disease. So that's an autoimmune type situation. That's how they're not the same. How are they the same? The treatment's the same. So you have to deal with the inflammation. We use systemic enzymes, and that's for type 1 and type 2. The diet is 25 to 35% complex carbohydrates, and depending on your constitution, 10 or 20, 10, 15% protein, and plant fat, not animal fat. is 25 to 35%. Okay, that's the basic diet. Of course, it varies. So that works for type 1 and type 2. How do I know it? By accident, actually. So I'm dealing with these people who are diabetic. We did our 120 people in the study, okay? And by accident, some type 1s got into it. Okay, they didn't know they were type 1s or whatever the reason. So what I saw is the same diet dramatically improved them. So in my research, 61%, this is a 3-week study, 61% of the type 2s who were not on medication healed in 3 weeks. Now, that means a blood sugar less than 100 and no medication. So it's a clear definition. Of those on medication, 96% came off their insulin, 96%, and 24% were healed in 3 weeks. Now, as we progress, there's more healing. But 3 weeks is very fast. So for type 1s, and this is what I mean by accident, I had no expectation that there would be any healing. I was like, that's not what I learned here. Okay. And I saw that 21% of the type 1s healed in 3 weeks. That means no insulin and a blood sugar less than 100. Now, I've had what we call juvenile diabetics, okay? And some come in not producing insulin at all, or producing some. And it turns out 88% of type 1 diabetics are producing insulin. Not enough necessarily, but they are producing. They do have 88% of type 1s actually have beta cells that produce insulin. Okay. So as I work with them, there's one kid came in at 1 and we went to 2. Healthy insulin is from 2 to 10. Just get the numbers and you'll understand what I'm saying. So he comes at 1, that means it's barely producing any insulin. But I'm working with him over time. We started when he was 5, and soon he's at 2. And then now he's 10 years old and he's at 5. Well, 5. Well, that means he's producing a healthy amount of insulin. He's off all medications, but he's fine. What's the meaning? Well, we're seeing it, people actually producing beta cells. It's the only conclusion you can make. They're making beta cells and their beta cells are working. Now, with type 1, because it's autoimmune, you're killing twice as many beta cells as with type 2. So you have to work harder to do all these things, but it's doable. And that's the point.
Absolutely incredible. And what came to me as you were saying that you stumbled on it by accident is how perfectly divinely orchestrated that was, so that even your own expectation couldn't influence it.
That's right. It was fascinating. It was fascinating. I had another person, at one point, this is before he saw me, his blood sugars were 1200. Normal is, best is 70 to 85. Less than 100 is non-diabetic. So he's at 1200. And he goes into a coma, he's in the hospital, What am I saying? So 5 years is a type 1. There's another kind of type 1. I don't want to get too technical, but it's an autoimmune from actually either a viral infection or a vaccination at a later age. Both the viral infection, the immune system makes antibodies by accident against your pancreas. Okay. So I got him off the insulin. He's been basically healed for 15 years now. And but he has to stay on the diet. But that's just a healthy diet.
Yeah.
People say, well, they have to say that that's right. That's a healthy diet. It's my diet. Like, come on, we're not on a junk food diet. We're not doing things that hurt ourselves. There's nothing big, but I'll just give a little footnote. In 1920, Albert Schweitzer was healed of type 2 diabetes by using this diet. So what I'm doing isn't really that new. I've just got a little bit more sophisticated with it.
Thank you. That's incredible. I have one more question for you, if that's okay. Just wanted to clear up something that's a really big topic at the moment, which is there's a lot of talk about bioidentical hormones for menopausal women and the interest around perimenopause, and how they're fine because they're plant-based, and therefore they're not like the previous HRT, which was not, and it's part of a natural healthy evolution through through that period of time. Is that something you advocate, or do you think we can adjust that naturally without bioidentical hormones?
So in my, again, 49 years of experience here, I've never used bioidentical hormones. Not me personally, but I haven't, right? And what I first do with women is get them up to speed. They get the whole endocrine system up to speed, get the whole immune system up to speed, balance the hypothalamus, pineal, pituitary, adrenal, we get everything balanced. That usually takes care of it, because for thousands of years, women, and they used to live longer, then there was a period where they lived less long, but before that, women lived longer. They didn't have, hormone replacement therapy, but they were healthy. You got to start with that premise. So the first thing I do is let's get people healthy here. Okay. Now, did we just get through menopause without a problem? That happens a lot, just being healthy. Sometimes there's a need for some herbs that will stimulate a little bit more progesterone, estrogen type of thing. And they'll also do that for a while. But the premise, we got to start with, let's be healthy. Now, hormone replacement therapy, I don't care if it's because it's plant or not, it's still artificial. Okay, just because it's from a plant, it's still an excess, extract. So that's one problem. But the other problem is that there is some long-term research that suggests, okay, and I'm just going to say suggest because I don't know how well it's done, that still you can get breast cancer from using these hormone replacement therapies, even if they're natural. So that's, and I think more research has to come on that. So I won't say that's an absolute statement, but from my point of view, I don't like to take chances. With my own wife, fine. We just did it the right way, and fine, everything's good. So the point I'm making is, I like the safest approach possible. And you take a few herbs, you take a few things, you exercise, you do these things. I mean, again, for thousands of years, women have been doing okay. And then you're healthy, then there's much less perimenopausal difficulty.
That's amazing to hear, because there's a lot of fear mongering about, your estrogen drops, and then you get kind of exposed to getting Alzheimer's and dementia and heart problems, and there's a lot of fear being pumped into women in that age group at the moment. And it's nice to hear some light.
Yeah, you have to be healthy. See, the whole discussion, if you're not going to be healthy, there's a role in a sense for getting some replacement. It's way safer to be healthy, and naturally you will raise that. I also find that with neurotransmitters. We're not talking so much about that, but people's clarity of mind, the dopamine and the serotonin with the natural diet naturally will raise them to optimal levels and keep them balanced. So that's the way I treat depression, you see.
Yeah. So it will naturally adjust and adapt itself. The hormones will adapt and adjust as you feed as
you're
you
feeding them to be appropriate. If you're weak, your glands aren't working right, then you're not going to get the right amount, and then you can have symptoms.
got it.
It's not that women are having symptoms, it's just that you have to be healthy. Then let's see what happens.
Okay. Dr. Cousens, although I can talk to you all, I would love to talk to you all day. I appreciate all this love and time you've given us. And you've just given us so much food for thought in a literal sense. And I'm very grateful, as I know everybody who watches this will be. And I also know that lots of people are going to want to get in contact with you. And how can people do that? What's the best way to benefit from your teachings?
Sure. There's two levels. Some people want to have a personal consultation, and they go to info@treeoflife.nu, New Universe. Okay, that's how you can make an appointment, and that's like Mahal is the one like we talked earlier. So that's an easy. I see people interested for 2.5 hours because I really want to understand. You can't do that in 10 minutes, okay? It's, so I rather see fewer people, but in depth. So this is for people who are committed, to really doing it. It takes time to do it, okay? The second thing is I have a bunch of teachings and things happening. They go to my website, it's at treeoflife.mn.co, and all the different teachings are there and so forth, okay? The other thing is I have, today is Thursday, so I have a spiritual nutrition hour where people come on and ask questions and do, and then I have Alive and Liberated with Dr. Garbriel. So they're more spiritual things, and that's when's Israel time. It's at 5:30 to 6:30 for the spiritual nutrition, and then 7 to 8:30. Roughly speaking, for the other aspect of that. Then we also have our peace meditations that we do on each equinox and solstice. Basically, those are the main things. I mean, I work with different countries. So, for example, I have stuff going on in Brazil, and, it's just time of the thing. But for English speaking, this is what I just, so once a week it's there. And they can have those, available, the two things. And then they can see me privately. I also do workshops. We do a 7-day fasting retreat. Next one is in August 21st. Okay, and I think the spiritual fasting, because we do meditating twice a day, and I call it spiritual fasting. It says it's really the only one in the world that actually emphasizes fasting for spiritual life. Okay. So we do that twice a year. And so we have the fast, and then we also have 1-day meditation retreats every other month. So the next month, let me just see when that is. Keep up with my schedule, is May 22nd. So every other month we have a 1-day. So we're meditating. We start Friday night with Shabbat. Then we do one meditation then and a Shabbat, like a special Shabbat ceremony. And then Saturday night for an hour with the Havdalah and also the Parsha discussion. And then all day on Sunday.
Fantastic.
So that's kind of things. I also do a scene, teaching a scene course every Sunday. And it's Israel time, it's at 6:30 in the evening. Once a month. So there's a bunch of different ways. They just go to the website. You don't have to memorize it, just go to the website and do it.
Okay, so it's all there. So it's all on the website. And I know that people are going to also, I highly recommend reading your books and just generally tapping into the absolute vault of wisdom and experience that you have within. So thank you so, so much for being so generous with your time and your knowledge and your love. And I look forward to connecting, and I hope everybody else gets as much benefit from this as I did.
Okay, very good. And blessings to may everyone be blessed that we're able to take this information and use it to greatly enhance the quality of our life, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Peace be with you.